Welcome to the Whole Life Podcast Show with Dr. Barb.
Hello, amazing, gorgeous you. Welcome to the Whole Life Podcast Show. Today we have Pastor Kim, Real Talk Kim, on the show, and she is going to talk to us about how she has gone from 2 divorces, being depressed, living in her parents' home, not being able to get out of bed, working in a department store, to being literally the next big thing on the scene of God's kingdom. She now has 4 books. She's ministering, and all that ministry, millions of people that she ministers to, comes from her brokenness. She's real, and she has a word of encouragement for you today. And I share personally my story in this. It's amazing how many similarities she and I have. And you are going to be able to see how God will take every ounce of your brokenness and pull you forward into being God's next big thing if you will do one thing, and that is obey. I cannot wait for you to be encouraged. And hey, go to heartsreturningHome.com because our course is currently, the cart is open and you can get in, but it's only going to be open for a few more days to get into the course. I love you. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Whole Life Podcast Show. I am so excited because we have someone who I follow on social media, who I gain inspiration from. Real Talk Kim. Hello, Pastor Kim.
Hello. I am so honored to be here with you. Thank you so much.
I so appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. So, Kim, Pastor Kim, you know that the Whole Life Tribe, we like to go deep down into the nitty gritty. And then we also like to hear about how God takes us from that deep place up into the high, high, high. And we just want to jump right in because I know from reading up on your story, my friend, that 4 years ago was very different for you. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Actually, it was. You're talking about when I left Bloomingdale's?
Well, a mutual friend of ours, Pastor Green, Dr. Green, told me about that story. And then I've also read up on you that you were stuck in bed. I thought it was about 4 years ago.
6.
Tell us everything, girl. I just want to hear.
Well, I was actually, I was raised a preacher's kid and found myself in 2006. I found myself walking through a divorce after 17 years. It was actually my second divorce. I was married twice before I was 20, raised in a religion that said if you get divorced, you're going to hell on a slip and slide. And here I am running every man off with my big mouth. And so I found myself in 2006 in bed, depressed. I laid there for probably 2 years. I started picking myself up from depression. I had to move back in with my mom and dad at 36. My ministry started at 40, which was 6 years ago. And that's when I really started living again. I had found myself through that season. I didn't waste a storm. I finally started realizing that laying in my bed of depression wasn't helping nothing. Being angry at myself wasn't helping nothing. Being angry at everyday situation, having to go work at Bloomingdale's, I hated it. And I realized that I had to start shifting my trajectory, shifting my mind. And I realized that nobody could get me unstuck but me and God. And so 6 years ago, so it's close to 4. 6 years ago is whenever I got up out of that. I got up and started living again. I went full-time ministry, wrote my books. I've got 4 books out now, bestsellers, and God's just done it in 6 years. So I am proof, and you are proof, that it doesn't matter what society says, you can bounce back.
Yes. A little bit about my story. I grew up with a lot of abuse, adult child of alcoholics, just alcoholics and addicts everywhere in my family. I struggled along some of those lines early in my life. Got saved. I mean, when I say that there was abuse, there's a lot of abuse in my childhood. Got saved around about 19, married young, someone in the church, someone who had been raised by a pastor. After 13 years and 2 little babies, he left me, remarried to another pastor's kid, married 11 years, raised his kids, then he left me. And now, like you, I'm 48,
Yes.
And I got my PhD around about 40, and God has totally turned things
Come
around.
on.
And I have a course. I'm writing 2 books right now. And Charisma's hosted this podcast. And the Lord promised me, he said, 5 years after you start your private practice, which right now, Pastor Kim, I have 15 employees, but God's giving us a double space, which means God is doubling us in every way right now.
Come on.
And let me tell you, I should not be who I am. I should be disqualified. But
Heck
girl, the Samaritan woman was God's next big thing. And
Come
she was an
on.
outcast in every way, right?
Come on.
Ethnically, gender. She had been left and left and left. She was down in the dumps. She was hiding from everyone.
Yes.
And yet she was one of the early martyrs. And she converted her whole town.
Yes. Because people like us, listen, I always say it. When you've gone to hell, you come out on fire. When you've gone through all that we've gone through, and even with me, I created most of those storms. But something happens whenever you go through something. You're endorsed by God. You've got oil dripping off of you. That if you would have never gone through those dark seasons, if you would have never gone through those wilderness, you'd never gone through that divorce, you'd never had to go get a job, you'd never had to start over again, you would have never had to be a single mom, you wouldn't even have empathy to even know what you're talking about. The reason God is doubling our platforms and increasing in such an abundance is because he knows we ain't quitters. We didn't quit in our darkest.
That's right.
So we sure ain't quitting now.
That's right. And I'll just share a little bit more. I don't normally share a lot of my testimony all at once because I find it's a lot. But let me tell you, I really am happy. And I'm not perfect. But also, right before I started my practice here, my dad suicided. And then a few years before that, I had lost a full-term stillborn. And then right when my husband left me, my mom died, who had been my main abuser. And yet, here I am, serving the Lord.
You're not bitter. You're not mad. You don't need Botox. I mean, you look like you ain't holding frustration. I always say, only thing that holding on to unforgiveness does is makes you need Botox. You look happy as a lark.
All right. So there have been some dark points. So I want you to take us there because a lot of times people think, yeah, but you don't get it. And I understand that because there are some dark times and I want them to know that we get it because then they can grab hold of the hope.
Yeah.
So take us to some of the deep, dark points and how God met you there.
Yeah. You know, I remember I actually had married 2 pastors' kids too. And we were both broken. That's usually you attract what you are, not what you want. You know what I'm saying? So I just attracted dysfunctional, broken people just like myself. And the first one, I remember I came home one day and he was gone. I did not think that divorce counted because I wouldn't know him because it was so fast, but God thought it did. So we talk about it. But I'll never forget, I stayed married to my second one, my baby's daddy, for 17 years, probably a lot longer than I should have, just because it was so toxic. It got abusive. It was alcoholism. We were sinning because sin will take you further than you want to go, cost you more than you want to pay, and keep you longer than you want to stay. And I'll never forget, everybody kept wanting me to leave because that's what people do. When people can see, you think they can't see. It's toxic. You think they can't see the pain. You think they can't see what's going on. You think you're protecting it. Nobody can see, but they do. Yeah. And I remember one night after it was about in November 2006, and it had been since my 30th birthday. My 30th birthday was when I saw the shift in my marriage. I saw the train wreck. I saw there's no going back. You know, when you start seeing there's so much water under that bridge, I found myself looking at this person that I never thought I would be. My kids' lullabies every night was screaming and yelling and police showing up at our house. And man, I just found myself at this place like, God, how did I get here? And what an embarrassment I am. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's what the enemy does whenever you find yourself in this place, especially when you got a call of God on your life. Like now it all makes sense because the enemy, listen, thieves don't rob empty vaults. The reason that you've been fought since a very young age with abuse, the reason that you've been fought with marriages that didn't work through, because the enemy can't take you out. So he tries to wear you out with bad decisions, with bad hurt, you know, with stuff coming against you. And so I remember one night in 2006, and it was in November, and I found myself It was an abusive relationship. He had become an alcoholic, and it was just, I was hiding it. I'll never forget. I was doing everything I said I would never do. I would never let a man put his hands on me. I would never live in this. I'd take a frying pan and beat the heck out of it. You know, I found myself in these places that I said I would never be. And I felt hopeless, because when you're involved in a relationship or a narcissistic relationship or a toxic relationship, the first thing they do is break you down so that you never leave. And so I finally, that one night, I realized he put a pillow over my head and he was drunk. And I remember thinking, first time I ever felt hopeless, first time I ever felt, because it was one of those things that I'm talking to somebody that's listening today that you are saying, but it only happens when. You know, he's a good man when he's not drinking. He's a good man when he's not angry. He's a good man when he's got a job, you know, or she's a good woman when things are going right. And so you live with these excuses, you know, if he's not drinking, he's a good man. But then all of a sudden he's drinking all the time and he's never a good man. And here you are stuck on silly and can't get free because you want your kids to have a marriage. You want your kids to have a father and a mother. And they're over here dying in this marriage that y'all are killing each other in. And so I found myself that one night, I'll never forget, I somehow got free from him, and I ran into a bush, found myself with no shoes, no keys, nothing, hiding, shaking. And that night's when I surrendered to God. And I just said, no more. No more, God, am I running from you? No more. You've given me chance after chance. You've got a call of God on my life. I probably have ruined that call because I was thinking God was like people, you know. I was raised in this religion that I wouldn't even pray, God, let your will be done, because I was afraid he was going to smite me with cancer or take my kids. He's a mean, mean father. You know, I'm over here thinking, and I'm afraid to pray. And so that night I was just desperate enough to reach out to God and be like, man, I'm not leaving here until I feel you. And that night I lay there for about 4 hours in that bush, just like praying for the first time in probably 5 years.
Wow, talk about a bush experience. Like you really had your own burning bush.
And I hardly ever tell this part of the story just simply because it's just a lot, you know. But that was my turning point. That was the point where I just said, I don't care about my $500,000 house. I don't care about $600,000 in the bank. I don't care about driving a Mercedes no more. You all of a sudden, everything that had driven me my whole life didn't matter anymore. And it was at that burning bush experience where I just said, God, I surrender. Like, I don't care if I got to move back in with my mom and dad. Nothing changes until you get to that place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, where you're finally ready to say, I don't care what people say about me. I don't care if people post it on social media. I don't care if people put me in hell. I don't care if I become the gossip at everybody's table. I'm not staying here. And that was the experience I had that night. I went in, called my parents. They came and saved the day, moved me out of my house. God let somebody come to my house that night while we were packing. It looked like I was having a yard sale. Somebody happened to drive up in my driveway and said, are you selling your house? They bought my house in the worst economy. This is what God does.
God is so good.
1 ounce of obedience will do more for you than all the prayer in the world. And that's where I was. God was waiting on me to surrender. And bought my house. An investor bought my house that night, so it didn't ruin my name. And he just started setting me up. It wasn't an easy process. You know, people want a genie in a bottle. They want God to save them from their decisions. I had created these storms, and I was mad at God because it was raining. And until I got to that place where I started saying, devil, you're going to wish to God you wouldn't have made me silly. You're going to wish to God you wouldn't have made me so rebellious. You're going to wish, because I am about to come up out of this thing. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get in my right mind. But one thing I know is I'm not staying here. And I promise you something. I'm going to crawl out of this hole. When I crawl out of this hole, I'm going to punch your teeth down your throat every day of your life by winning everybody I can back to God. I'm going to give people like me hope. And so I started on that journey where I literally put a do not disturb up on my heart. Literally moved back in with my mom and dad in a 10 by 10 bedroom, the size of my old walk-in closet. I found out there was nobody stays with you when you go through a tragedy. Where are all your friends? Where are they at? All the people. It's amazing, right? All the people that we care about their opinion. We live for their opinion. We live for their support. We live for their validation. How quickly, when something happens in your life that they don't agree with, they are gone and they fill your spot just like that.
Or they say, and the same people that said, what did you do to make this happen? The first divorce did it again, the second divorce. And that was real clarity for me. Yeah, that was real clarity for me. I knew, okay, this is not just a moment. This is not a safe person.
This is not. And you know what you learn to do? You learn how, especially when you carry the narcissistic approval behavior like I did. I just had all these toxic people because I didn't think I was worth good people in my life. And I realized all of a sudden I was learning how to pray. Even though I was a preacher's kid, I had never heard God. I'd never heard the voice of God. I would go to camps as a little kid. Everybody's like, I heard from God. I'm like, I didn't hear from God. I didn't hear from God. Because I was waiting for God to be like, Kimberly. I was thinking he was like, going to shake the world, get my attention. And I realized in that season, man, when I started really being intentional, I was intentional and I was praying specifics. I didn't need no bishop to lay hands on me. I didn't need no therapist to lay hands, although I think therapists are awesome. And I think that it's okay to be saved and need a therapist. But I was learning that it didn't matter who all talked to me unless I got to a place where I wasn't staying where I was staying. If it had to hurt like hell, I was moving my feet and I was getting out of the stinking thinking that I was in. I was worthy. I had let counterfeits put me in. They'd taken me off the couture rack and put me in the clearance rack, and I was owning it. And so I was at that place where I was like, no more. And I remember thinking, I would rather have 4 quarters than 100 friends. And that's what God started doing. He started setting me free from people. And that Katie barred the door after that, man, because I started paying attention to what was going in my ears, what I was listening to, who was getting my attention. And it changed everything.
That's so good. I'm getting ready to start the Hearts Returning Home course, and it's actually, the card is open right now, and I'm going to do a live Bible study every week because I can't practice psychology outside of North Carolina, but I can get online and teach the word.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been studying Naomi and Ruth, and Naomi, the land of Moab. First of all, the story of Ruth and Boaz, they both came from incest in their background. So I think that's so cool. Thinking about how God uses brokenness, right? And because
good, girl.
Yes, isn't that good? And then with Naomi, she left the land of promise and went to the land of bread. So it was provision. But with it, there was the worship of the god. I forget Chemosh is his name, and Chemosh stands for destruction. And often when we leave where we're supposed to be to find provision outside of God, it's paired with destruction. And you know what happened? She lost her husband, and then she lost both her sons. And you got to know, she probably didn't lose them both in the same day. It took her a long time to turn around. It took her 3 deaths. And the God of Chemosh sometimes required human sacrifice. And let me tell you, when we get off track, there's not good sacrifice, but it's never too late, is it, to come back?
Never.
Yeah.
I always say this, sis. I always say, as long as you've got a pulse, God's got a plan.
Mm-hmm.
He's just waiting. Where the enemy gets us is he takes our hope away. Mm-hmm. He gets us to a place where we look at how far we got to go instead of how far we've come. Mm-hmm. We have social media now, which is, to me, it's been a lifeline because God's given me a huge platform because I've used my social media to love people back to life. But what the enemy will do if we're not careful is he will have social media as a culprit. We're looking at everyone else's highlight reels. We're looking at where they are, and we're looking at how far we're not. And so we got to pay attention to that. We got to pay attention and realize that people are only putting their highlight reels up there. And so that is the key right there, is that when you're in a place of change, you're in a place of healing, you're in a place of getting up again. It's going to take, maybe one day you're going to have a meltdown. Maybe the next day you're going to step a little bit further. Maybe the next day it's not going to be a good day, but you're going to get back up again. It's every day realizing you are your cheerleader. You are, even if it feels like your leg is a turtle stuck in peanut butter, you got to drag that leg, and you got to realize that it's okay to do it with a limp. It is okay to drag it with all the baggage that you got on it, and every day you put one foot in front of the other. But nobody can move your feet but you. Nobody can change your thinking but you. And that's what I did when I was in my hell, when I was going through my transformation, and it was a slow process. I wanted it to be overnight. I didn't have a real talk, Kim. I didn't have a you in my life. My world was kind of small because I'd come out of this religion and this ministry, and I was church hurt and angry. And the last thing I wanted to do was look at a preacher. Mm-hmm. And so I'm over here like dying. And all I could tell myself every night was, God, I would lay in the bed, girl, and I'd be like, kill him. I mean, I was so angry that I wanted God to kill everybody that hurt me. And I prayed specifics. I was like, kill him with a train. Because I knew if God killed him with a train, they couldn't be healed. I wanted them poof, gone. And I remember in that season, what God did was he started bringing people like you in my life. Mm-hmm. He started bringing Real Talk Kims. It wasn't many of them, but it was people that I looked at and thought I feel the safety enough to open up to them. And that's what I started doing. I started filling the void in my life with people. I turned off Beyonce. I turned off trash TV. I turned off reality TV. And I got intentional about what I was pouring into me, because I was so desperate. I was so broken. I was so hurt. I was grieving, and I was still alive. I was depressed. Mm-hmm. And so I used people like us to get me out.
That's right. And that some of that anger was probably good. Now, wanting people to die, right? We probably don't want that to happen, but
it's reality.
Yeah. But sometimes people try to move straight into forgiveness and they never get angry. And a lot of times when I work with people clinically, if their go-to is always sad, then they probably need to learn to get a little angry. If your go-to is always anger, then you probably need to learn to go to a little sad, because we get stuck in these. We get stuck in these mechanisms. But to finish the grieving process, we have to go through what we're lacking, the part that's blocked, and then we can get free.
Almost that numb spot, huh?
Yeah.
It's that numb spot we get to when so much hurt is there and we can't even cry anymore.
Well, anger can too feel very empowering. And so I've seen a lot of people be addicted to anger. And then I've seen a lot of people be terrified of anger. And we gotta say, God shows anger sometimes. There is a righteous anger, and there's a natural instinct where we say, you shouldn't hit me. No, it's wrong for you to hit me. Stop it. No. But when we keep shutting that down, it's like we put a natural piece of us on ice and we go into survival mode, right? And so that needs to thaw. And we might need to feel, in order to be able to have the right radar to be like, no, we have to feel that again.
Man, that's good.
Isn't that good?
Yes.
So you had to have had some PTSD, because basically, sweetheart, you're telling me you went through domestic violence.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what did your healing process look like?
What I did was, when I moved back in with my mom and dad, it took me probably a good year to get my tail. Like they made me start leading praise and worship at their church, and I hated their church. So I just went, but I had such great parents. My parents were preachers and they would pastor this church, and I hated their church. It was like a whole bunch of old white people. And I was like, oh God, they just stared at me when I was leading praise and worship. But it ended up being the greatest thing that happened to me, because I ended up learning how to not worship for people.
That's good.
And my mom and dad gave me permission to heal from the PTSD. I would come in drunk. I'll never forget this one pivotal moment. I was still going out and partying. I would go with all my work friends, and I would drink and drive home like this. And you know what I'm saying? Like, numbing my pain. It was like,
I do know what you're saying, unfortunately.
I had to break the cycle, and I wasn't being a good mom. My kids were needing a mom, and here I am still so dysfunctional and not handling business and still numbing myself. And I'll never forget, my breaking point was one night after about a year of me being back at their house. I'll never forget, I was about 37, and I had been out with all my friends, and I was drunk, driving home like this. And I got home, and you never know you're really as drunk as you really are. And so I walk up the stairs, and as I'm walking up the stairs, I knock off all of the pictures. And I remember that I crawl in my bed, I fall in my bed, and I hear my dad or mom coming up the stairs. And I'm a grown woman. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel like I did when I was 16. And I remember my dad, as soon as I heard them, I jumped in my bed like this, and I felt like I was asleep, and I remember I felt air breathing on my face.
Oh, no.
And I thought, oh my gosh, somebody is looking at me. So I just kind of opened my eye like this. And it was my daddy. And I remember my daddy told me that night. He said, baby, I know you're hurting. And he said, I know that your life hasn't turned out the way you wanted it to. He said, bye. He said, but I hope in the morning you don't have a hangover, because you're going to still get up and lead praise and worship tomorrow. He said, so get you some sleep, sweet girl. And I'll see you in the morning at church. And I remember laying there, and it was almost like I got sober immediately. You're like, oh my God, my dad just caught me. But at that moment, it was almost like I felt the love of Jesus from my dad. He didn't condemn me. He didn't curse me, but he made me, it almost was like a reality check, like Jesus was staring at me. And when he said, you're going to get up in the morning and praise your way. And I was like, Dad, I can't do it tomorrow. God will strike our church with lightning if I get up there. I will smell like a brewery. And I remember he didn't even care. And I never went back, and I never did it again. It was like something broke off me that night. And that's the way my journey with healing was. It took me 3 years. I remember telling God, laying in the bed, like, God, like, you got me in Fayetteville, Georgia. You made me move back in with my mom and dad. And you put me in this church with all old white people. And I'm already 36 years old, and white people melt. I need a husband. Like, I don't want to be single for the rest of my life. And you got me in this church with a bunch of people that ain't no man in here for me. And I remember God telling me, I remember it's clear as day. He said, well, number one, you ain't ready, because God started really talking to me. Like, I really was hearing God. I realized that God wasn't Kimberly, but he was more of that still small voice. And I was starting to hear him because I got rid of all the chatter. I got rid of all the toxic people. I got rid of all the people that were only connected to the outdated version of me. I got free from people that kept enabling me in my dysfunction. Party. I got rid of it, and I got with God for the first time. And so it was like, all of a sudden, that's when God started moving in my life. And I didn't, I told him I'd give him a year. I said, God, I'm going to give you a year to heal me and my big mouth and my nasty heart. And then I'm going to get on eharmony.com, bigdaddy.com, Tinkerbell. I'm going to find me a husband. And I remember God said, go ahead. How's that work for you before? And so I gave him a year, and he took 5. 5 years. But I got so comfortable in my healing process. I stopped filling the voids that I did before that made me react and made me go ahead of God and made me hurry. All my life, I struggled with being bored. All my life, I struggled with running. I was a runner. When it would get uncomfortable, I would run. When atmosphere would get uncomfortable, I'd run. When accountability made me uncomfortable, I would run. And it was the first time that I put the brakes on, sat my seatbelt on, and I began to let God heal me in that season. And I found my purpose. I started leading praise and worship. I started not looking for a man anymore. I put that do not disturb up on my heart. I didn't date anybody. It was almost like I prayed every night for protection. God, don't let no man come in my inbox. Don't let him slide in my DMs. Don't let me get sidetracked by no good looking man. Let me stay the course of healing. And if I don't ever get married, I'm going to still serve you. Don't even let me think about a man. And God did it. God did it. I got my focus intentionally on, I am not going to live the rest of my life this way. I'm not going to be a train wreck. I was one of those outspoken girls. I was one of those control freaks. I want all of it. I want to get free from people, please. And everything that held me hostage, I gave God permission to heal, and he did it.
That's so
But it took 5 years.
Beautiful. I do want to share too with the listeners that I did not have parents to go back to. My family wasn't that kind of family.
And a lot of people don't.
But I would want to encourage everyone, because just like the Lord met you through your parents, the Lord met me in other ways. Yeah. And so I want to encourage the person who's saying, yeah, but I don't have that. You have daddy. You have 2 things. Yeah. You have daddy and you have you. And you know what? I discovered me. And I know that to some Christians that might sound fleshly, but you know what?
I love it.
When Jesus came in this earth and he embodied a body, he wasn't like, by faith I'm here, but I'm not really. No, he was really here, and we're really here in this earth suit, and we have ourselves. And all that nurturing that we give to people around us, we can also be like the Holy Spirit by nurturing ourselves. Isn't that good?
I love it. And in reality, my parents let me move back in with them, but God did not let them come up and save me from crying. God did not. I found me too. And I think that's the key. The key is to take inventory of what didn't work. Stop repeating those cycles and say, oh, have a hell no moment. You know, charisma, I'm writing a book right now. And charisma is let me put shut hell up. I'm just so excited about that breaking those, because I had to tell hell to shut up.
That's
I had
right.
to have that hell no moment. Kimberly, no, nobody did it for me. Because what we have to understand, you just gave such a pivotal, because I get that all the time. Well, I hear your story. You had mom and daddy. I ain't got that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? At the end of the day, everything you need, God knew before you were ever even a thought in your mother's womb that you were going to be facing this divorce. You're going to be facing this sickness. You were going to face your child being trifling. You were going to face having to start all over again at 48. You were going to face, God knew it before you were ever even here. And God said in 2019, my girl, my daughter that I am so proud of, is going to face a transition, and she's going to have a trajectory shift, because everything we need is on the inside of us. God's given us the grace to dig deep and pull it out. We're all there. We got this flower that God's waiting to bloom, and we got to believe in ourselves. So I love what you said. Absolutely.
Yes. You know, about 7 years ago, the Lord also spoke to me about alcohol, since we were on that topic. And he said, if you want what I have for you, you need to lay this down. And my kids never knew that I drank too. They know now, because I've told them, because I did it after they went to bed, and I didn't have DUIs or anything like that. But I love how Beth Moore says my last name is Moore for a reason, because whatever it is, if it's good, I want more.
That was me.
That's me.
Girl, that was me. I had no cutoff valve.
That's right.
In anything.
And so whatever it is for you that God is saying, if you want what I have for you, let this go. It's so worth it.
Gosh, it is.
And another cool thing the Lord spoke to me is he said, 5 years into your practice, I'm going to turn you from clinician or psychologist to author, speaker, clinician. And it was at that time, like Dr. Green came into my life and other things began to happen. And it's just so good to see the purpose of God being fulfilled in our lives. And he spoke that to me. Now it was like 8 years ago or 9 years ago, but he spoke that to me before my husband even left me. And my mom died, and a lot of things happened. And so God, actually, I think that was even before my dad suicided. But God is so good. There is nothing, am I right, Kim, that will disqualify us when we have our Bush moment and really turn it over to the Lord.
And the one thing that I discovered about him was he comes on the scene rapidly. Like, he's the kind of God, in Joel 2:25, he said, I'm going to give you back everything the devil stole. Mm-hmm. But my God is the kind of God that if you finally get to that place, you say, I don't want back what I lost. I lost it. I want restitution. I want 7 times greater. And you start, this is why I love vision boards. You love vision boards. I love vision boards. Because when you can't even fathom what God is about to do in your life, you got this big old vision board. Like, if I look back, it's been 6 years in November. This coming November will be 6 years. I was 6 years ago in November. I still got 2 months left before my 6-year anniversary. I was driving a broke down Chrysler, which I called my Bentley, because a 300 Chrysler looks like a Bentley on the outside, but toe up on the inside. I was making $400 a week before taxes. I was living at my mom and dad's. I wasn't married. I was working in retail. All of these things, and I couldn't buy cheese with my credit. Mm-hmm. And I look at what God's done in just 6 years, because I made a vision board. I put on there my dream car, my house. I don't want to be struggling. I want my kids to not be a statistic for divorce. I want a great man that's going to love my lights out, that tells me 45 times a day how proud he is and how much he doggone loves me. And I look now, in 6 years, everything on that vision board came to pass already in 6 years. And my dad ain't famous. Nobody handed me the book deals. Nobody gave me the platforms, but my surrendering. And I started believing it, because the Bible says life and death are in the power of your words. So I think that if we can get to that place where we start retraining, and mine would just happen to be, I got to see it. I got to wake up every morning, but I don't want to get up out of the bed, and I don't want to have to go put lipstick on people. I realize this ain't where I'm staying. Today, I'm going to walk in that Bloomingdale's, and I'm going to be Jesus to somebody. I'm going to be Jesus with skin on. So I started retraining my thinking, retraining my voice, retraining. I'm not staying here. That's for somebody right now. Me and you. In just 5 years, you. Just 6 years, me. And look what God's done, because we decided to not look at where we were, but where we were going.
Yes, listener, we are telling you there is not an excuse that if we can do it, you can. Because if anyone should be disqualified, we should,
Heck yeah.
right? I mean, I'm a
We
mental health
definitely should be
professional.
married again with great men. What?
Yeah. So it's so funny that we're both married to pastors.
Yeah, I know. Where do y'all pastor?
Well, he was my pastor. Right now, all the stuff that we're doing is outside of our local church. We're knit into our local church, and we help support and do some mentoring. But he has led and taught worship all over the world, and he has some big things that he's going to end up doing again. But he went through his own kind of little bit cave experience.
Yeah.
The enemy took him through that he's come out of. And I'm excited about what God's going to do with him.
You know what? I think so did my husband. My husband had the same thing. You know what's been so beautiful with my husband, though? My husband would never talk about it. Like men don't like to air their dirty laundry like us women. Like I'm like, yeah, I did it. Like I just feel like you just got to tell everything so that whenever they put it on Google, everybody's like, oh, we already knew that, you know. So I tell everything. When I married him, he was like, don't be telling my stuff. Don't be telling that I went through a cave experience. Don't be telling people that I've been married before. Don't be telling people. Don't be telling people. Don't. Now he's like, yes, I killed my best. And he killed his best friend at 15 years old on accident, strung out on drugs. Now he tells it and cries telling it. So
I love it.
Cool.
Yes, because when we own it, listen, when you look in the Bible, outcasts are almost always God's next big thing.
Yeah.
Like this is the way he does it. And because we are so hungry and needy, there's something about God, I need you. I have got to have you.
Yeah, we need Jesus.
Yes. That was so much fun to be with Pastor Kim. Wow. And I want you to know what God did for Real Talk Kim, what God did for Dr. Barbara, what God is doing in our lives, God will do for you and is doing for you now. And you must take steps of obedience. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pray and ask the Lord, are you calling me to take the Hearts Returning Home course? If the Lord says yes, I want you to go to www.heartsreturninghome.com right now and sign up for the course. We're going to have 10 modules where you get Faith Plus Therapy, do at home videos. You're going to have access to our exclusive closed Facebook community with our 3 community coaches. You're going to have access to a live online Bible study with me once a week, the 33 handouts, so much goodness. Do not miss out. If God is calling you to be healed and to take a step forward, this might be it. And hey, are you following me on social media? Make sure that you opt in to my Instagram and YouTube and that you are following me on iTunes and Facebook. I cannot wait to see you receive more healing. You are my heart. You are my assignment. Please pray and ask the Lord, is it your will for me to be in this course? If not, that's okay. Don't do it. But if it is his will, don't miss out. We treasure you. We love you. We're here for you. All right. I'll catch you next time. You mean everything to me.